together. I usually talk to doctors, so it's different. I don't have to make a whole new presentation. So, quite impressed with my new PowerPoint skills. It's really evolved since the last time I tried. When we did that home.
I'm not a doctor, but I stayed at Holiday Inn Express last
Hey, there you go. That'll work. I'm not a doctor either, so it works out. It makes me sound a little more important.
Well, I think we're all here, so we'll go ahead and get started.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay, my name's Melissa Mercer. I'm the president, owner, and founder of Evolution Medical Technologies. We provide bioimplants and human tissue for transplant for surgical procedures. I'm a bit nervous today. I am not a public speaker, so I'll give it a try.
Hey, we're only 3 people here.
That's right. That's right. And I am very excited about the whole program. The mentorship aspect of it is really what's most attractive to me. I'm a big believer in mentorship in my personal and business life. I try to pay that forward when possible. And I'll go ahead and get started. All right.
Oops.
Good?
Yeah,
So,
you're-
all right, so we're gonna like you to join me today in celebrating life through life-enhancing transplants. So, this is a newer presentation to me, so bear with me. Evolution Medical Technologies is privileged to be the link between patients in need of biological medical therapies and those inspired to restore hope and healing so others may pursue renewed possibilities in life. We approach our work with respect and the utmost of care, and we're committed to deliver donated gifts. All right, so the gift of transplant tissue, it's reported that there are more than 1 million tissue transplants performed in the United States alone. Each day there are thousands of life-changing and life-saving surgeries that are performed by skilled surgeons to repair, reconstruct, or promote bone growth or soft tissue growth in recipient patients using allograft. Today we're going to primarily talk about bone and tissue donation. It is strictly voluntary and must be consented by the donor and the donor family. Bone and tissue donation is a gift given to improve the quality of life. Donate Life says that more than 75 families can be impacted, but it's actually up to hundreds when you look at doing things down to, say, like a dental bone reticulate, when you're doing a bone implant for dental. And we encourage you to take a look at donatelife.net, where you can go on and register if you'd like to. So transplant tissue on the whole would be an organ, bone, or tissue, or group of cells removed from one body, the donor, and transplanted into the other, the recipient. If this is too lowbrow for anybody, we can move on to, I'm just trying to give a basic. There are 3 main types of transplants. There's an autograft, which would be the donor to self, same species, same host. There's going to be allograft, which is going to be same species, different host, or the donor to recipient, which is what we're going to focus on. And there's xenograft implants, which would be animal to human recipient. So allograft comes from the Greek word allo, is an allograft from another. Allograft transplant's been effective for more than 150 years. Recent advancements have taken us out of the regular orthopedic and spinal, maxillofacial areas into burn, cardiac, oncology, and wound care. And that's been a very big jump in the last probably 5 years. Allograft has always been an efficacious, cost-effective option as opposed to metal synthetics and xenografts. And for today specifically, we're not going to talk about organs. Organs are totally different. That's going to be on an as-need basis. It's blood types and things of that nature. So there's different things we can use allografts for. There's ACL reconstructions, shoulder or rotator cuff. We've heard of disc, slipping a disc, spinal fusions, things of that nature. hip and knee replacements, orthopedic reconstruction due to trauma or cancer. We can do skin grafting, heart valve replacement, the socket preservation, and I'll show you guys some of the products with that as well when we're talking about the microns of bone particulate. Wound care and treatment for diabetic foot ulcers, and this has been really life-changing all over the world. I have a partner that's been stuck in American Samoa for the past 3 months because he can't get out for COVID, but has been treating specifically. There's a huge case of diabetes down there, multiple loss of limbs, and he's been able to just do some really amazing things. I'd love to show you guys, but I don't want to gross anybody out another day. Breast reconstruction after mastectomy, incontinence, and cornea restorations. So obviously quality and safety is a huge part of our business. We are regulated by the FDA and the American Association of
Just
Tissue
get a quick,
Banks.
so maybe Kayla's just here. It would be probably nice if she would say through this. I got her quick.
Okay.
So we have a director of healthcare, his healthcare, so it will probably be nice. I got one for group, so.
Oh, she's here? Or are you
Yeah,
here?
she's just,
Okay.
if she's still there.
Okay. Well, now I have to sound more smart. Just joking.
While we're waiting for Bea to come back, does anybody have any initial questions?
Not yet.
Doesn't sound like it. Okay, Kim's here, so we'll resume.
Oh, hi. Hi. Nice to meet
That's Kim
you.
Edwards. She's a veteran of healthcare. She
Sure.
runs our.
Great. I said, now I need to sound a lot more smart. I was doing good before. So we were just talking about allograft tissue. We do transplant tissue, non-organ bioimplants, and things of that nature. So I was mentioning we are regulated by the FDA and American Association of Tissue Banks. They are actually the gold standard internationally, at least from what I've experienced. Most people always want an AATB accreditation. Our partners use CLIA certified, FDA registered testing and process tissue in ISO certified clean rooms, basically under operating room or aseptic technique. So Evolution Medical Technologies is a registered human cell and tissue establishment. That's our FDA number. All of our processing partners at minimum are going to have FDA, AATB. The states are only specifically because of overlay. And each one of those will have to have their own inspections, their own accreditations thereafter. So donor screening. Evolution Medical Technologies provides tissue processed by reputable tissue processors with robust quality systems. It begins with a comprehensive donor screening, including behavioral, lifestyle risk assessments, medical and social history evaluations, and that's above and beyond what might be in the file. So they're going to go and talk to the family. They're going to say, what is the sexual activity like? Is there IV drug use we might not know about? Did they travel? Did they get a tattoo in Tijuana? Or any type of extra exposure that may omit them? And then final decision after microbial testing is done by our medical director. So at bare minimum, we're going to be looking at HIV 1 and 2 antibodies, Hep B, C, multiple nucleic tests, syphilis, and microbial cultures, and they have to be negative for all before even being considered. And again, that goes back to the medical director doing a complete oversight. Things like possibly could have been exposed to Agent Orange or anything like that in the days. Doesn't mean it's excluded in one country, but it might be in a different. So all tissue is processed in class 100 clean rooms. We follow good tissue practicing under stringent aseptic technique. Procedures are validated to ensure allografts meet stringent release criteria. We're going to make sure that essentially all blood, lipids, bone marrow, anything like that's removed from the tissue. We're going to disinfect it against a panel of relevant bacterial and fungal viral pathogens, and we're going to remove any residual processing materials that might not be biocompatible. And after that, tissue is going to be either terminally sterilized or released under aseptic technique with more stringent criteria. So we've talked about donor screening. We're looking at reducing risk of disease transmission. So we talked about donor screening, processing excellence, and now we want to talk about reducing the remaining bioburdens through disinfection and sterilization techniques. So bioburden loads can be reduced by cleaning and disinfecting the tissue. Different groups use different things for different types of products and reasons. It'd be debridement. Some use a low dose of pre-irradiation, lavage, centrifuge, sonification, the digestion of cellular material. We've now more recently introduced supercritical CO2. I've done a lot of work with that. I know Australia is currently using this technique as well. Milder chemicals such as alcohol, antibiotics, and more aggressive ones such as acetone will be checked to be removed. So terminal sterility, and safety is always a question. Terminal sterility means it's a 1 in 1 million chance of a single viable microbe present. So it doesn't mean it's 100%, but it's as close as we can get. You can achieve that through gamma irradiation. Supercritical CO2, which I mentioned, never goes over the temperature of the human body. So that's been a big progression in being able to reach that instead of aseptic technique. And then there's e-beam irradiation, which is more like a pulsing for sterilization. So basically, it's how do we want to prep everything for a surgeon? So in making these types of grafts. So we want to reduce the immunogenic response through decellularization. We're getting all the blood, all of those active things. It might be something that would reject and say something like an organ. We're going to reduce the barriers of optimal physiology. Like one example would be demineralizing cortical bone to release growth factors, and I brought some products. I'll expand on that in just a few. We convert grafts into more usable forms. That could be simply grooming a tendon or cutting a bone graft or making something like a cervical spacer that's on a machine, CNC machine. I have some of that to show you, and then combining it with synthetics. And then we also have lyophilization, or being able to freeze dry it to keep products at ambient temperature. So the main types of preservation methods would be refrigeration. These are going to be considered fresh grafts. Evolution doesn't really work with these a lot. It's a lot higher risk, and we are very risk adverse that way. But those typically have about a 60-day expiration. We have frozen tissues like tendons are going to be shipped on, say, like a dry ice. Those can last up to 5 years in a negative 80 freezer. No, for real. Yeah, and then we have cryopreserved grafts, and that's going to get more into your live cell grafts that might have to be things like bone marrow for cancer patients and transplants and things like that, and that's going to be in a cryopreserved state. Then we have ambient temperature. These things can literally sit on a shelf in ambient temperature for 5 years. They can ship overseas. They can go in FedEx. Some of the products I brought today that you guys can see, and totally incorporate back into a living product in your body. So
Wow.
it's kind of neat. All right, so I try to pick like the least offensive pictures. This is about as much as it's going to get, guys. Okay, I promise. This is as live as it's going to get.
Killers. I ruptured mine 5 years ago.
So there you know. So
It was devastating.
it's a horrible, horrible experience, isn't it? So we have an Achilles bone, an anterior and posterior tibialis tendon, which is going to come up from your ankle, and a patella tendon, and it's called a VTB because it's a bone tendon bone. So if you kind of feel over your knee, that is the patella tendon. There's a piece of the femur and a piece of the tibia. And so all of these can be used in knee ligament repairs, ACL, PCL, MCLs. elbow ligament repair, ankle stabilization, and vaginal colorectal reconstructions. And really one of the benefits to using allograft in this is we're not doing 2 surgeries, right? So some doctors are completely against allograft, some are more for autograft, so they're going to take one tendon from your body and move it to another place. But you have double surgery sites, double chance of infection, and double time of recovery. So general orthopedics, and these are just the origination of how all of these implants started. There's a ilium tricortical block, that's actually from your hip bone area. Tibial shaft, a femur head, and a hemicondyle. And again, these can sit in a package for 5 years, shelf stable. They can be used in things such as osteo defects, trauma, oncology tumor resectioning. There might be a tumor in the bone. They can go cut out a section. They'll actually take a shaft of whatever is a mutual bone, put them together and plate them, and it automatically gets a memory after being on there, and it grows together, and it doesn't matter of blood type, ethnicity, anything like that. No rejection.
Those bones grow or the other bone grows?
So the bone actually incorporates into this bone graft and becomes alive again.
So that's why you would use real bones rather than like plastic.
Correct. And so now, depending on how the treatments are here in the United States, we've started to have progressed upwards now that we have these newer, cooler technologies. This is still kind of newer sciences and some of the international grafts. So, where possible, they'll use a live bone, but in some instances, maybe with just deformities where there's a significant lift and maybe they're going to be, children are continuing to grow and they got to grow with it. They have, need new metals and things like that. Yep, so I'm kind of going through those. So this was kind of the next step in the evolution of just doing real simplified bone grafts. And so these are actually cervical grafts. If you kind of look like this and it's your, like your vertebrae here, and you've heard of slipping a disc or things, well, the disc kind of collapses and it starts to press on your nerves. So what these do is they go in between, and then under pressure, again with a plate and some of these other bone growth enhancements, it actually creates a fusion and grows in together. Right? So they're made from, to be the bridge between 2 vertebral segments in the spine to obtain fusion. We can do cervical and lumbar, anterior, posterior is just the approach, front or back. And the textured surfaces designed to reduce migration. They're done on a CNC machine in various footprints. When a surgeon goes in, and I'm going to kind of go back. So if you look at this, the bone here, and you kind of look down the hole, the thickness of that bone is what delineates the height of our graft. So a surgeon's not going to know exactly what the lift amount is until they get in there, so we want to provide them a set. That's one of the investments I spoke about, I think, in my original proposal. So you provide them a set so they have multiple options for size, because they're going to need to see once they get in there. And these new grafts have actually, they were always freeze-dried, but now they've been able to be in like a suspension. So this isn't an actual spine graft. I don't have one with me, but that's like a hard piece of cancellous bone. So they're already hydrated, and the benefit to that, not all of them have started doing that, but the benefit to that is actually surgeons don't want to take, or their preps don't want to take the time to rehydrate these grafts. So what was happening is, especially with spine grafts, you'd see some post-cracking or splintering because it says put it in there for 30 minutes and they go like this. So this was the change and the new answer.
It's more like a Martian.
There's a lot of food references, unfortunately.
How long is that preserved for?
5 years.
Okay, 5 years. That
You
was my
guys-
vote.
Can you guys see this?
Oh.
5 years.
5 years. All right, so the next step, we have the bone that is going to incorporate the bone, but now we need some ways to enhance bone growth. So the next generation that came out was called demineralized bone matrices, and with these products, it's going to release osteoinductive qualities, or basically kind of jump starting that bone growth. And the purpose is to have three-dimensional scaffolding to support tissue. It's done through a decalcification process. We take a piece of hard bone, put it in an acid bath that kind of shakes off all the minerals. So it exposes all the good growth products. Let's see, rendering it to initiate and cascade the bone generation and retaining the natural bone scaffold. And for these, so I don't know if you guys can see, in here there's like a webby, looks kind of like a really kind of like a dense crouton. That's considered the cancellous bone, and that's actually what will turn into some of these next products, which are sponge products. So you can kind of put these around if you want. So these have been demineralized and spongy, and then this will be, these are the putties we're about to talk about. So DBM putty was one of the first demineralized type products. And instead of, say, like a dental bone where it has just this loose powder, they needed a medium that would be able to kind of, they needed a medium that would be able to hold this together. And so there's two kinds. There's the 100% human. It's like basically like a caulk, almost like a bone caulk. And that's made completely out of 100% human. There is no carriers. There's no synthetics that are in there. Yes, the putty. Mm-hmm. And I have a demo that we'll get ready to show you. So it's going to basically be able to deliver this bone powder without migration. And then the 510K, which would be a medical device. Now that just kind of takes us into a whole new direction with lots of other registrations and things like that. It's going to have synthetic carriers, but it's going to maybe turn into something hard, like a bioglass. Both are used for very different procedures, and it's really surgeon preference on that. So we have a little demonstration video. It won't take long. You'll see it's in a syringe. So each kind of tissue bank or processor kind of has their own special formula. Are you grossed out? Okay, I was trying to make
No,
it.
it's okay.
Okay, I tried to make
It's
it
fascinating.
as little gross. Is everybody okay? Okay. So we try to make we're trying to keep it together. And again, there's no carriers, which is crazy. It can mold, it can shape.
So what are you going to do with that? Like, where is it going to go?
Right. So this is any of these products that are called DBM or demineralized bone products are there to help fill a void, like a bone void. Mm-hmm. This one's going to give an example here in just a second to where, well, this is just showing some adhesion that it sticks.
It's like Gorilla Glue.
It's like a caulk, right? That's kind of the way that it works. And again, so this would be just an example of, a non-scary sample. That's right. And so this would be maybe a tumor resection. This could be a trauma break or something of that nature. For this product, it's going to have to get some sort of wrap, right? And that bone will actually incorporate and become yours. And again, no blood type, doesn't matter, nationality, anything like that. And that was just better. Mine's better than your kind of thing. You saw the ball was like much tighter on one side. And then this is just showing another option in the lateral gutters. The next one was the sponges I sent around. That's the actual spongy part. And what's neat about these, it's made of that 100% cancellous bone. It's used as a scaffold. It's all of the mineralized or calcium is taken off. Once rehydrated, it comes like a complete sponge, and this kind of allows the surgeon to be able to use PRP, which is platelet-rich plasma, bone marrow aspirate from the same patient. Sometimes they're using stem cells from other donated sources, or even relatives now, they can do things like that. And so there's Hudson cube strips and particulates. This one was the newest generation. So this was able to, with no carrier, this is all with the cortical bone. It's kind of shredded. Pass that around if you want. Kind of looks like, sorry, another food reference, like cotton candy. This one really gave 100% no carrier, even with the human carrier, and it allowed for surgeons to actually kind of make their own concoction again. So we don't ever tell surgeons what to do or how to do these or consistencies or anything like that. It's really all discretion. It's not real blood.
Oh, but that's what you mix it with?
Right,
Mix it
so
with
you
blood?
can choose platelet-rich plasma, where they're going to take your own stem cells, spin down your blood, right? People use that for hair implants. They're injecting it now, vampire facelifts, things like that, with the idea, that's what they call it, where they take your own blood. And the idea is to get a concentrated amount of your own stem cells. Some people use other access to stem cells too. And so this is just going to kind of be in the same way, except this literally has no gelatins, no anything else like that. Lucy's kind of fibrous. It's going to do the same kind of bone thing. It just goes on to kind of show something the same as what we've already seen. So these have been some of the bigger new products. I'd say the past few years it's really taken off. This is one of the things I was talking about for the diabetic foot ulcers. This is from donated placenta. So this is an amniotic patch derived from the amniotic membrane. We have to be very careful not to use the word stem cell. Stem cells are under a very controlled viability count. So we're not allowed to say there are stem cells in it, but there are stromal matrices that allow for release of growth cells. This is the protective membrane that protects the baby from harm and development, and is considered to have a healing property. So just like it shelters, when we do something that's an allograft, it has to do the same basic function it does in the body for it not to be deemed a medical device. This is all 100% from healthy planned pregnancies. They go into it saying we would like to donate our placenta to help heal in other ways. So we have regenerative medicines, wound management, chronic and non-healing other wounds. A big project I actually want to work on. I have a very big fear that once our senior citizens are going to be let out, or we're allowed to be let in after this whole COVID thing, we're going to see a lot of bed sores and non-friction wounds. And I think I think one of there's multiple reasons for that, but the staffs were shorter. They couldn't get the specialists in. It's just, they had to keep them isolated. There's motions where they'll, rub. There's a lot of reasons, but it is something I'd like to see, that possibly have what's been done in diabetic foot ulcers and catch these wounds early before they become a big problem. So we have ocular, they put them actually on eye surgery. It's really neat. Burn care, and the benefits are that they have cellular migration proliferation. There's a non-immunogenic response. It reduces inflammation. It works great for scar tissue. I've had it done on different, I've had skin cancer surgeries and things of that it's amazing. There's African Americans specifically are very prone to keloiding specifically. So they'll get like larger keloids. We see it a lot in like C-sections when they want to get a revision done. So they'll go in and they can cut that keloid out and put it in there, or just preventatively if you're going to be doing an elective surgery, that you're going to be seeing that area. Pain reduction at the application site. There's actually injectable amnion that has taken on a whole market of its own. It is not reimbursable. They're using it in athletes to inject into their knees for pain. It's supposed to stimulate new growth and repair other types of things. We're using it in the military currently as well a lot. And it acts as a natural biological barrier, again, going back to its natural function for baby. So customer service, of course, we pride ourselves on.
Consolidate schools, like 40 just that you know. Okay. That press release, so the gross quality picked it up just a minute ago, just that you know.
For customer service, we pride ourselves, of course, on our customer service. We help hospitals, surgery centers, med device groups, and anyone who's going to use it. Instead of having someone that is having to shop around for a match or anything like that, we have a network of about 8 tissue banks, so they'll call us. We provide them with what it is that they need. Today's healthcare executives are concerned with rising costs resulting in managed care episode-based payments and lower reimbursements from third parties. And hospitals and purchasing agents are scrutinizing costs like never before. Like I said, we've come into a mainstream way to get things from A to B, and most times can beat, if given the opportunity at a purchasing agent, can beat fees by 20 to 25% across the boards. So Allograft is our expertise. We partner with multiple tissue processors, as I mentioned, in all sorts of medical disciplines. We work closely with our partners to really help with their current and future supply chain needs and offer growth and potential and expansion. So if we have a rep in, inside of the hospital, we'll go in and really try to get their full portfolio and explain what we can do. We just started doing consignment inventory, which has really opened it up for us. I've been, much smaller than the multi-million-dollar groups, but in certain groups, especially the spine groups, by going and putting these in, we just bill as it comes on. So it's an initial investment, but it keeps them using that. So as far as U.S. hospitals, this is kind of our supply chain of how we get things, how we get paid. So we can go direct hospital. We have 1099 representatives that are most likely in the cases with the surgeons. We'll pay them a percentage or override, but still bill the hospital. We work with medical device companies that maybe make the plates, screws, different medical cages. They're the ones also with reps in the OR. So we give them compliments, and anything that a rep can do to keep another rep out of their OR is kind of the main goal for them. And then we have other distributors that have representatives, may or may not, and we bill them and they bill the hospital. So international distribution, all placements of donated tissue grafts and bioimplants are valuable and rewarding. It's been our focus, passion to strive to place hard to match or soon to elapse or expire tissue grafts. So my original career was in wholesale banking, not tissue banking. I was an account executive for 8 or 9 years and managed warehouse lines for mortgage banks. We all know where that went. So had to kind of change my profession. I found a tissue bank. I thought I was just going to learn a little bit to get in, and ended up taking over all of their business development and distribution. And what I was finding is that there seemed to be a lot of tissue that was just sitting there and going to expire. And obviously our mission is to make sure every gift that's donated can get placed. But what I found was happening was maybe the tendon wasn't off of a 50-year-old. It wasn't this length. The surgeons in America maybe had a little bit more option and could be a little bit more picky. Or it could be that maybe they overproduced a product, or maybe that product wasn't fashionable in that size anymore. So there was a lot of excess that was expiring. And so in our pursuit, we found international distribution to be mutually beneficial to all parties involved. We're able to increase our distribution reach by maximizing donor gifts, and we're able to really go help underserved areas internationally that were previously either overlooked for geographical or societal and religious issues with donation. Maybe they don't donate or things like that. And so when I started the company, I really had to, I'm again going up against big multi-million-dollar medical device companies. I'm just out there by myself. And so I had to kind of come up with a way of, how do I get into these groups? I know how the tissue bank works. I know how the donors work. I've done every aspect of that type of business. So I said, what is it that you cannot move? And so I went into each of the groups and helped them start moving tissue. They're really worried about selling something that would drop their margin. So I went and found really great ways to export internationally. So they were able to move large volume, all of the tissues getting used. They're not sacrificing their published price here in the States. And it really is something that hadn't been maximized. And so that's kind of the niche we had gotten into to start. So currently we are in United Kingdom, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands. Venezuela is kind of interesting because I didn't know how that would work or not, if we were allowed to do it, but because of what we're doing, we are. There's a surgeon in Kissimmee that contacted me. He goes down and does really major traumas or cancer surgeries, like for bone tumors and things. So, sometimes you get something really rewarding by finding a match and being able to do things like that. Jamaica, Ecuador, we just got approved in, but they have been slammed by COVID, so that's not really worked out so great. South Korea has been the most difficult registration of my life. They pride themselves on their very stringent guidelines. Even though I have 2 distributors there we're working with, you have to do 2 complete submissions. So 2 different underwriting findings, everything else, but we're finally, I think, just there. And what's really great about, the Asian countries specific in my experience has been that, or we were talking about maybe here in the United States, we have much bigger people. We're looking for bigger tendons, maybe bigger, thicker bone grafts as far as for the cervical. That's not true. Otherwise, they can use smaller grafts, shorter grafts, and grafts that we can make a lot easier, basically. So it kind of fills in that void, again, maximizing the donor, but being able to fulfill something that they can't do without their donors. There's one group, it's the only group in the whole world that's AETB accredited that's not here, that imports donors from the United States to process in Korea. We are shipping to U.S. military bases in Lakenheath, England, Landstuhl, Germany, and Guam. Just more recently, tried to start monetizing the knowledge that I've been able to get. So to kind of get in good favor at the beginning with these tissue banks, I would bring deals, OEM private label deals from med device groups. I'd get the distribution in, but again, just trying to really work my favor with everyone and become an asset within the industry. So medical manufacturing, international registration, people just don't want to do it. It's hard, it's difficult, it's time consuming, and it doesn't always work out. And so I've really come up with a really great way. I have form letters. So one of the tissue banks is just completely sending anything international my way to go ahead and do, even if it's someone they're approved with. So that's been really nice. And right now, as I was talking about mentorship, one of the larger medical directors in the country has really kind of taken me under his wing and was teaching me how to properly do consulting and how to monetize that. Showed me how to do some contracts, showed me how to do all of the things that would be, I guess, involved in consulting. And so right now I'm working on a human clinical trial for a novel patent. This is for all barrier materials, but specifically in burn skin, we're very excited. There's been nothing new in 50 years. It's a $1 billion market internationally. The animal studies are phenomenal and very promising. So we're just getting into starting the dental dermal side of the clinical trial, and we're almost close to starting the processing for the human clinical trial on the burn skin. All right, so at this point, is there any questions on the general, anything tissue-wise or
So let's,
specific? I have some more, just a little bit more on, what I think we can do together, but I just wanted to know.
well, let's go ahead and do that. There's about 5 minutes left in the presentation time, and then we'll get with the,
Okay, so what is it that I really has drawn me to your group? I first just got an email. It was right when COVID had hit. Obviously, I thought, well, maybe they're just trying to fill the building. Either way, that's a great idea. I'm not mad at it, and if they find a company they like, then good for it too, right? I wasn't until actually in the last round that I actually saw, I did think it was a grant program. However, I knew better than just being a full grant program. So the more I looked into it, I'm assuming this is kind of an incubator experience, and I love that. I think it's great. I think that there's, again, mentorship is huge in my life. Live working ecosystem, great for someone like me who doesn't have a whole lot of, interaction or competition within my own walls, so I liked that. Where you're positioned internationally, either there's some interest I currently have or am somewhat doing some in the works things, so that kind of matches. And just in the general like-minded philosophy of your community mission. I don't know if you read my intro when I had submitted, but business and philanthropy, I'm very involved in all the Kiwanis and things in this area too. So all of those things were very beneficial. So the benefits to me, obviously we did some coaching, mentorship, business development, the participation and actually helping to form and participate in the whole incubator. I don't know if that's a good word or not to use. Is enticing to me. As I said, I try to pass on what I've learned, at least in mentorship that I have. It's obviously privately located in my neighborhood, so I have no problem with that. And to you guys, it would be, I think I can bring a lot of different seed and venture capital opportunities. I did a little looking into your bios. It seems you guys are kind of into biotech.
Absolutely.
You're
It's
interested.
fit for, absolutely.
I see where you've located your,
Particularly in Switzerland, so.
and I have a very big interest in Switzerland specifically too, because to my understanding, Switzerland and Cyprus are one of the more fluid registrations for what we do as far as to getting in and going within distribution throughout the EU. I don't know if that's completely true, but that's
I don't know.
what I've seen. I see that you have university relations with here and in Switzerland. Again, I'm a woman, so that helps with women-owned business loans, I guess. And there's just an unlimited growth and economic potential in the biomedical and life sciences in general. And as I mentioned, I am very well connected within that industry and space. So the only big change is since I originally had submitted, I have had a pretty large funding change. I received a PPP loan. We have about 3 weeks left to finish that. I did a 7A I'm sure y'all know what they are, a 7A non-disaster loan. During this environment, as I said, I did lending for 9 years. It was the most invasive procedure. I would say it in a much more colorful way.
Participated on various fronts in various parts.
I mean, it was extremely invasive. I mean, it was forensic. They were Googling my husband's jobs and W-2s. It was just, I guess, because they want to make sure the risk was okay. They had 6 to 8 months of constant bank statements. It was just pretty tough. And then as soon as I closed on that, I got an email saying, hey, you're qualified for, $50,000 on the EIDL loan. The only thing with that loan is that it is anything over $25,000 you have to collateralize. So I've asked for a loan mod down to the $25,000, so not otherwise collateralized. So in my initial ask, I did ask for something, but as you see the time and we're in the hand with money. So that would be the only change or difference. It would be my funding situation right now.
Great.
So we've consolidated all debt, paid off credit cards, SBA pays the first 6 months principal interest, which is neat. And so I think between, we have a good significant amount of working capital right now to work with. But that, yeah, all right.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to start. Carol Ann, can we start with you for questions?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So thank you for your presentation. Your enthusiasm is obvious, as is your knowledge of this product space. One thing I'm curious about is I'd like to know a little bit more historically. You've had this company since 2011 when you left TissueNet. Your income last year was around $40,000. So
What happened last
why that little after that long?
Sure.
And what is it about now that causes you to feel like this is the time to scale?
So last year just was a series of oddities. One of our larger processors or tissue banks stopped processing, and it took about 3 to 4 months for us to get our contracts back in line with new processors, just simply for time that it takes to get through bureaucracy of hospitals. We've since brought on 2 more tissue banks and have tried to implicate that all of our groups will have multiple tissue banks registered. In doing that, though, we've been able to greatly reduce our cost of goods sold, and actually our products, we've been able to reduce almost by 40%. So right now,
Wow.
I have to look. I think we're already at about 225,000 in sales right now, and we're over a 50% profitability. So it was a kind of a loop in time. Not our proudest moment of day, but we were able to recover for it, and I think better off for it. We also had a client that completely, they've not started a bankruptcy, but they owe us about $30,000, and they had kind of pulled out on that. So that was that year. As far as reason to scale right now, on a personal side for me, I've got to raise my babies. They're older now. I've got to kind of start getting back into it and rejuvenate. I started at the beginning and branded it and just have had, an easy run of things. But I think now it's just kind of the time to grow. A lot of things are coming our way, and like I said, a lot of new opportunities in the consulting area. So it just kind of aligned at the same time.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I love your business. In my background, I've had some experience with some tissue banks and some companies in this space. So, but I'm just curious about that revenue number last year, trying to reconcile that in my mind. Great answer. In fact, I love the fact, and looking back now, I can say this now, that you've been through that really difficult time that forces you to really look at all your operations. It forces you to look at customer relations. It forces you to look at how you structure those relationships. And to your point, it makes you a much stronger leader of a company. So congratulations on pulling yourself out of this a little bit.
Thank you.
That's all for me, Stephanie.
Thanks, Carol Ann. Marta, you're up.
Thank you. Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for your interest in applying in this award. I'm going to defer my time to the other members of the panel, but before I move on that, I just wanted to tell you that for not being a good speaker, I think you did great.
Oh, thank
you have
guys.
the most. You have the most important ingredient is the passion and the love for what you do, and it's evident that you have it. So when you have that, everything else is reachable. So I'll be very happy to see if there is some way that we could work together with the FIS floor, because your concept and your product is not only selling and giving hope to other people, but I think it goes very, is appropriate and goes hand in hand with the FIS floor, concept on the biomedical field. And I would love to see what's the future of this alliance. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Marta. And for those who weren't on when Melissa said that she was feeling a little bit nervous about her speaking ability, so that wasn't Marta just taking that into consideration.
She was just telling me.
Okay, so Robbie, you're up next. Robbie's in
Thanks,
Singapore.
Stephanie. Hi, Melissa. Thanks so much for the very
I was
detailed
going to say good
presentation.
morning to you.
He hasn't been in bed.
Yes, it's almost 2 a.m. in the morning. Anyway, so my question to you is about the competition in this space. Maybe you could give me some color as to the competitive nature of this space and maybe a bit about the USP of your company.
The competition, is that, in the
So
US?
do you see other companies that offer similar services?
Sure, yeah.
And how would you compare against them?
Sure, absolutely. A lot of the companies that offer these types of products are far larger than me, and I mean extremely larger to scale. I've done this with no funding or anything, just completely on my own. I think I started with a $5,000 investment. So most of the people in this space are, like I said, either larger medical device companies. It used to be made of a lot of smaller groups, but it's been purchased by the device companies wanting to get everything kind of like an OEM, like a manufacturer, like a Cheerios, but it's with their own label on it. So there's a lot of space, and where I see a huge market stateside. So it's aside from exporting, because that's a huge market in itself. It's lovely for us. There's wires up front, very risk adverse again. But stateside, there's been a big transition in the past year or two where medical device reps have either been scaled down substantially for what they're getting paid or reimbursement. So a lot of them have now the ability to bring in other products. They're already signed up with the hospitals, and that's what I would say this year, even through COVID, where I thought it was going to be pure devastation. We've started picking up a lot more of these individual reps that are used to getting a much smaller cut, and we can pay them significantly more, or they even pay us at credit card. So again, cutting down the risk. So I think growth potential is huge. To scale is completely, you can put your name on your own box. There's a lot of extras to do, but I've been kind of doing that all in myself. So I think the scaling potential is great. I think the connections I have are not with salespeople, they're with the directors of the foundations, the owners of the tissue banks and things of that nature, and they're very supportive, so I think that they'd be very open to any type of scale. That answer your question?
Great. Thanks, Melissa. Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robbie. Andreas, how are you? Good morning.
Yes, thank you. Hello, Stephanie. Hello, Melissa.
Hello.
Thank you very much for the very enthusiastic presentation. I also have a hard time understanding your USP. Like Robbie, I also after your reply, I still don't fully understand it. Furthermore, what is your vision for this company? What are your growth prospects? Where do you see yourself in 3-5 years? And another question would be, do you have any exclusivity on certain products, or are these products, I know they're not, you cannot have an exclusivity on Achilles ligaments, for example, but maybe there are some certain tissues or some technologies, patents that you have maybe an exclusivity on?
So for what I do currently, the answer is no. I help other companies to get special made products if they want on my consulting side. So if they want to get a special made product to fit, like we were talking, their medical device, they'd have exclusivity on that. I've recently started getting the exclusive to any international distribution with one of the tissue banks. I don't have exclusivity on these things. These are not proprietary. Again, my US-based model, I think right this moment, is being able to harness all of these reps that are now looking for revenue and that are in the surgeries, because a lot of these surgeons, these guys go on vacation together. They're with each other for 20 years. So in the United States, I'd be looking to do that. But for exporting internationally, I think that that's going to be a huge growth potential for us. I can see if there was an interest in a proprietary product. It's just at this point to scale, I have no need for that at this moment. But it is available if that was something that someone wanted.
Okay, so then is it correct to say that the business is heavily reliable on the success of your sales partners, the salespeople that are under you in the end, and that makes you win over your competition in the end? Because in the end, you all deal more or less with the same products.
I would say the salespeople is just one aspect. Like with the reps, we try. That's why I've tried to kind of diversify with that. I think most of my strength truly comes with the connections with the processors, because this is a limited resource. It's not like a metal or a widget. It can't just be replicated. So access in general is usually one of the more difficult things. Really being able for me to expand some staff to allow me to go do what I want to do and sell and do those type of things and grow business is, I think, what my next step needs to be. One of the things I would hope to learn in a mentorship program is kind of how to let go of that full control over everything and trying to do everything yourself. That is definitely probably one of my larger faults.
I was going to say, don't we all?
I mean,
You're a good company.
yeah. But I would say the limitation truly has been the time that I've decided to put in and where I've been ready to scale or not. And like I said, it's just at the time it coincides. I was applying for that 7A loan in March before I saw this. COVID gave me this great amount of time to actually say, okay, let me restructure, revamp, rebrand. I hadn't done that since I started the company and had just been very comfortable. So I don't think that I'm on any kind of down cycle. It's just now at a time that I feel I can fully invest into the company and career.
Great. Is that it, Andreas?
Okay. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. And I might add, Melissa's been a long-time resident of Avalon Park and a very good community steward, participating in many events with her family, her husband, kiddos. So I've known Melissa for a very long time, so I'm happy to see her here in another capacity.
And actually, my mother-in-law is even at Encore. So.
Hey.
Who's your mother-in-law? Novotny. Okay.
So we will turn it over here to Kim. I'm going to put the camera on you. Do you have any questions? Or
I don't have any questions. I do think your idea with the wound care is a great idea for long-term care. Yeah, there's lots of
see that,
opportunity
right?
for that.
And I think that what I've been trying to find out, and it's for personal reasons as well, but I've been trying to find out what does that reimbursement level look like. To my knowledge, when a facility has a wound, they kind of own it, and I don't know if that's a general term.
So for skilled nursing,
is that for,
in a
okay.
SNF more than in
Okay, and again, and I'm not quite sure how that works, but it's to my knowledge that, and so these things kind of come at a sliding scale pricing, in that some things are reimbursable and have one price, and some things are not reimbursable, and same product has a significantly different price. But I think that I was just starting to look into that, just because
there's not a lot of new innovation in wound care for a long time.
And especially in that market, and it's just done just shocking things. And the difference with wound care with these types of products is you can't see what it does in the spine or inside the body. It's all quantitative. You can't prove it, but you can see it in a wound, and you can see a shocking change. And I think there's great growth in that.
Fantastic, thanks. Great, how about you? Any questions?
So I think you did a great job. I like the market. You were the first person in any of these presentations that I've sat in that talked about what you could bring to the 5th floor as opposed to just what benefits. So I thought that was an awesome element to your presentation. So I have a couple questions.
Yes.
It sounds weird to talk about human parts as like a supply chain.
I know, and it's something that, you know,
To be
gets,
completely clinical about the whole thing, are you concerned about issues with your supply chain and the ability to get pieces and parts from people?
well, and as I mentioned, you know, the biggest, sales staff is not my concern in this industry. It all is about supply, and I feel extremely well vetted and comfortable that I have probably one of the best accesses in the industry. I'm very respected in it. Just in the fact that it's a small community. You know, there's probably 15 major banks. I always say I'm Switzerland, but in that, you know, I get along with everyone. I help the different groups to, you know, acquire together. We're all in a community, even though they do compete, and so I kind of work with all of them. So potential is huge. I mean, it can be anything from, like you said, making an OEM product. If there was a medical company that wanted something specific, I mean, there's tons of money in that, just to be, you know, to be honest, a lot of it.
And then, are there any impediments like from the actual doctors and like end users of these? I mean, is this all mainstream adopted?
Everything that I'm showing you is just about as vanilla as it comes, and then there is all kinds of newer steps forward, mixing live cells. You can get as proprietary really as you want. I also didn't want to bring anything that looked all kind of gross or funny to anybody, so I tried to keep it as plain. But yeah, there's nothing shocking about this. We're internationally, it helps out a lot. Is it some you know, whether it be religion or cultures, don't believe in donation, but still have a need, right? Yeah, so I don't, there's doctors either use it or they don't. It's not a hard sell that way. And the other big change that's happening is surgery centers here in the United States are being bought by doctors. So they're being called physician-owned surgery centers. So they're all taking a piece, and they're moving a lot of their surgeries over to the surgery centers, and the bureaucracy tape is gone. And they really just want price a lot of times. If it's not a proprietary product, an Achilles is an Achilles, maybe you choose your type of sterilization. That might be a preference, or, you know, then you want size option and things like that. But yeah, there's nothing off color about it. It's not shocking. It's not like when stem cells came out, you know, we don't do.
There's no medical impediment to
Controversy.
It's adopted, it's mainstream.
Completely adopted, completely mainstream. Like I said, when you go to your dentist and get a bone, sometimes people don't, I'm surprised, don't even really know, but when you get an implant, you might not, they'll say we need to do a socket preservation, and they just put bone powder in there and, you know, look it up. So it's pretty mainstream. It's just not talked about as much, you know.
Well, I hate to rush this along because we're running a little bit over, but if you have some final comments, and if there's additional questions from the panel,
I'm
then
sure there,
Email, etc. No, Melissa, thank you very much. Thank you for being in Avalon. Thank you for being a
thank you.
community steward. Yeah, I mean, first of all, my kind of like overall comment is on many of those presentations, you're among the top 20% of over 150, so you're already, you know, obviously kind of like one of the finalists, otherwise you wouldn't be here.
Sure.
But now on top of it, I mean, you're really coming in with a niche, you know, because we have other people who, yes, certain things are similar, you know, so strikes me too, like most of your colleagues who came in colleagues or finalists as well, 20 years ago when we did this, and recruited among others Data Transfer Solution, which became a firm with over 100 employees and 8 offices all over the country and others, the focus was mainly money, you know, people needed money, you know, so, but I always kind of like thought about it and said, well, if the business idea is really not solid, we can bridge it with money, then it takes a half year and then it's done. You ought to prove too, you don't primarily need money, I think you primarily need mentorship, is a strong word, but I think you need a collaboration in the community. You fit perfectly in a group of company like ours, with Encore, an assisted living facility, with Home Health Care, which we have on our board, with my involvement on the board of Advent Health, with our internationality, with Ravi and Andreas in Singapore, with Kirby in Australia, with us and office in Switzerland, next to the pharmaceutical giants, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's what you're more, to get to the next level. Somebody could give you $1 million. Yeah, I mean, it will help, but I mean, that's not really what's the key, and that's helpful. So, I mean, I will tell you guaranteed, I mean, we will wrap this up in a week because we have a
couple days.
a couple days, yeah, sorry. And then in a week, you're definitely part of our entrepreneurial family already. I mean, and what that exactly means, I think that we have to fine tune. And what after that probably will happen, I mean, as we tell you, hey, Melissa, you're a winner, we want to work with you, then I think it's the fine tuning and say, hey, look, let's make maybe a half-year plan till the end of the year. There's space, there's technology, there is our long list of connections where we want to introduce you, where we want to go in, etc. And no, but I mean, I think almost anybody, and you particularly now for me, is something where we say, wow, what a great addition to this community, and how the fit between us as an organization with, and you laid it out so greatly by saying, this is what I can bring, this is, what it benefits you as an organization, and this is what I'm looking for. I mean, I think it's 100% match. Well, like with Andreas and Ravi, don't understand every in and outs of your USP. Don't understand, exactly how you do it, but I understand the basic, idea. But what I know for sure, we have the connection to, get you this collaboration, which I think you need. I mean, I simply say, in a few months you will sit, on the second floor, which we call the fifth floor, or we've done on the second floor.
I've been counting. I was like, that's mean when you get up a level, above the four,
the second floor, the fifth floor, we're on the second floor, our Innovation Center. You'll be there. I mean, we'll all be there with other entrepreneurs, and I bet you, with a few months therein, you will have additional connections, and we'll have learned from you that 1-on-1 is clearly more than 10, so more than 5 on the fifth floor. So,
okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Jury, see you in about 5 minutes.
Oh, we have only 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The next presentation is online, or?
Yes, it's online. It's at 2:15.